All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Zach Moonshine with Metal Devastation Radio, and right now on the phone with me I have Haniel from Markradonn. What's going on, Haniel? How you doing?
What's going on, brother?
All right, man. So tell everybody out there listening what's going on in the world of Markradonn.
Well, we are currently in production of, or pre-production of the first full-length album that we're planning on releasing by the end of the year. There's no set date for it just yet, because I know there are a lot of people out there that don't know who we are or what we do, but we're essentially a death metal band that uses a full brass section, and we use a full-time timpani player. So production for us is a little bit more complicated than the average band, because we have to record and produce these additional instruments, and it takes a little bit more time. And right now we're currently looking to fill out this brass section because we need 3 more brass players in order to finish the album. But we're also going to be appearing on a compilation with Bluntface Records called Operation Underground, and that's going to be premiering, August 28th? Yeah, August 28th. And Metal Devastation Radio is going to be premiering it, and we have a lot of promo going on for it. And it's pretty exciting because the entire underground scene, especially a lot of the bands that I know and a lot of my friends, are really getting kind of screwed. And they're not getting the sort of exposure they deserve. And, I think it's time to motivate and pump up some of the fan base and get them into some new stuff that doesn't necessarily have some sort of a major or semi-major label attached to it. Everybody, they like the Niles and Behemoth and bands like that, and that's great and everything, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. The whole rest of heavy metal and death metal and extreme metal is all that other stuff that's under the surface that you don't hear about. So I guess what Otto is trying to do is to get more exposure to some of these bands to get them out to the fans. So that's pretty exciting. And I'm pretty stoked about that. And Otto is really sincere about this, and he was really pissed off about the current situation in the scene. He's trying to do something great to support it. So he's been great, and he's been really a good asset over the past couple of years, trying to help us move forward with things. So definitely a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of work going into this album too. So there's definitely a lot happening to the point where I'm just forgetting to do random shit like sleep.
Yeah, Otto is a cool fucking dude, man. He sent us your EP back about a year. I think it was about a year ago, right when we first started this station, and we've been jamming the fuck out of it ever since, man. Fucking, but he definitely has a lot of cool bands on his label, and he puts forth a lot of promo. And that's really cool. We're all about that too.
Well, thanks so much for your support with that, because if there's a band out there that needs support, it's the really experimental ones. Because I think we're at a stage right now with the scene where you've got 2 different types of bands. You've got bands that play to the genre and the genre expectations, like death metal bands that play exclusively identifiable death metal parts and riffs, and you can hear, okay, this is death metal. Then you have the deathcore, then you have the metalcore, then you have the post-prog Nintendo core. You have all these different subgenres, and it just gets to a point where, like, if you can identify the subgenre from listening to something, it's typically something that I'm not going to be too excited to listen to more than once or twice. So there are a lot of bands out there, and quite a few of them are on this compilation where they're not playing to a subgenre. They're that on the other end of the spectrum where they're just playing whatever comes out, and they're expressing whatever they're expressing, and they're not saying, well, I'm going to start a death metal band and we're going to play death metal riffs and we're going to do death metal vocals. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that there are a lot of bands out there, including us, that are really trying to do something different, and because we don't fit into a particular subgenre classification, the media, and especially the major metal media, like the 100,000 like pages on Facebook and the modern day version of Metal Edge, they don't give a crap about us because we do not fit into a subgenre. And if they try to create some sort of or try to fit us into a subgenre, it wouldn't work. So I think what's happening right now is that you're seeing a lot of the metal media, and I don't mean the online radio stations, because the online radio stations are much more like the college radio stations in the late 80s and early 90s, where they didn't give a crap. If the stuff was loud and proud and sent goosebumps on your skin or chill down your spine, they played it and they loved it and they supported everything.
Right. Yeah, well, for the most part, we play what we fucking like, man. We don't give a shit because we're not getting paid.
And even if you were getting paid, it would be disingenuous for you to go and play stuff that you couldn't honestly and sincerely say, hey, you guys got to go and check this out.
Right. I might play it if I was getting paid, but I probably wouldn't be hyping it up as much.
But another thing, too, keeping an open mind. Yeah, exactly. Keeping an open mind, I think, is really important as well. And I think a lot of these other pages have been and websites have been really disappointing because they have a hard time wrapping their brain around music they can't go and put a label on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one thing that I ran into where I had this review from some guy from this metal website, and it was a really peculiar review. Now, usually I'm an argumentative son of a bitch, and I don't care. If somebody gives me a hard time, I'm going to give them twice a bad hard time right back at them. But what this guy wrote was just so peculiar, and you look at all the other stuff that he reviews, and anything that is not signed to Century Media or one of these other labels. I mean, the guy shits Bricks and Peas sideways over Dark Tranquillity. Look, we get it. Dark Tranquillity is a good band, but it doesn't preclude other bands from getting a good review from you. And it was just, I'm just looking at this stuff, and to this day, it just makes my blood boil. And he said stuff like that we were too unpredictable. Well, you got to be kidding me. Number one, that's not even true. And number two, it's just like, how could you say that a band is too unpredictable, and then a month before that, you go and you have a review of a power metal band from Tampa, a really good power metal band that's really popular, that kicks some serious fucking ass around here, and say that they're not unique enough because they're playing power metal. So on one hand, you got a reviewer who's saying on a major metal website that is supposed to be supportive to underground metal. I'm not going to say who it is because I'm not going to go and slam somebody from Metal Rules. But but hey, you know something? I think that band should be allowed to go and review reviewers, especially if somebody doesn't know the difference between a bucket snare and a timpani.
Yeah.
Sorry. If somebody doesn't know the difference between a trumpet and a hurdy-gurdy. So I sent the guy an email, and then I said, look, you made a comment in there to go big or go home because we didn't do the brass thing big enough, which in my opinion, we shouldn't have done it too big on the EP anyway, because it was our first experiment with that. We don't want to shoot our load the first time around, and at the same time, too, we're still learning how to incorporate this type of instrumentation in a non-Metallica S&M way into the music, so it sounds actually kind of cool. So he's like, if you don't have the budget, then, maybe you are like, then you shouldn't be doing stuff like Dimmu Borgir, and only bands like that with that kind of budget should do this type of stuff. I mean, that's kind of what he implied in his email reply to me. So he's saying to me that we shouldn't be doing this because we don't have a $35,000 production budget like Dimmu Borgir. I mean, that's the sort of shit that I'm talking about, where like these metal media people, a lot of them don't fucking get it.
No, well, I think a lot of those fucking sites, I mean, not every single one of them, but probably most of them are run by fucking trolls, man. It's just, it's some fucking kids, that just, they like what they like, and that's that, and anything else, they're just gonna fucking troll it.
Yeah, then this dude is like in his mid to late 30s. He comes from the same generation of old school metal as me, and he just totally. I mean, and he's like, I listened to it again, and I stand by what I said. Dude, we don't use a bucket snare. You have to correct that. You have to correct that. That's what I'm talking about. And they can't wrap their fucking brains around the fact that there are bands out there that don't sound like the bands they listen to. Like I have a friend who's in a band called Horus from Romania. Been real supportive. Totally fucking different kind of metal. And it's great that he's on the compilation with us. But at the same time, it's like for the past year, this poor guy has been dealing with so much shit about people just not knowing how to identify his stuff. So it's really, really amazing music is getting fucked right now because of people not supporting the scene and giving these people an opportunity, because there's some really ridiculously talented musicians out there. And you know, I should probably tell you the story and the background behind this compilation, which sort of happened, I guess, by accident. There was one time I read something on Facebook, and like I said, I'm a real confrontational motherfucker, and I really don't care if I hurt someone's feelings telling them the truth or calling them out on their bullshit. And people call me out on my bullshit too, which is why I don't bullshit. You know, if you hold people to a higher standard, then they're not going to bullshit you. If you say, hey, you know something, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm not going to screw around. There are too many people that bullshit and get away with it, and I got a little fed up with that. I read an interview with Colonel Sanders from Nile, who I'm no longer a fan of, and he was saying in this particular interview that he would rather support an obituary Kickstarter project with his hard-earned money than the guy down the street, because he doesn't know who they are, and they might be awesome, but he's not going to go and spend his money on someone that isn't an established act or somebody he doesn't know. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Dude, when you first got started with this, how the hell did you get to the point where you got without people supporting you? We didn't know who the hell you were. In 1997, when you were opening up for fucking Gore Guts, okay, nobody knew who the hell you were when you were playing Guitar Synthesizer, when you were doing like Ramsey's Bringer of War, which is a blatant ripoff of Gustav Holst's Mars, and you don't even credit it. So it's like, that's what pisses me off about people like Niall. And I'll say it. And I don't care if people think that I'm a dick because I'm saying it. But if this guy's not going to go and support a band that's busting their ass that lives 2 blocks from him, and this guy is going and playing gigs and releasing albums, getting these big budgets, and he's only going to go and support his friends, guess what? You are hurting the fucking scene, bro. You are hurting the music that gave you, the fan base that gave you the lifestyle that you have, where you can create music and make maybe a living doing it. It ain't right, and it ain't fair. So I posted this big freaking rant on this on Facebook. Otto saw it and said, you know something? Fuck this guy. Fuck these people. Let's go and do a comp, and let's go and get the word out there to people and really promote the shit out of this. I said, right on. And he's like, what's the name? I said, I don't know, Operation Underground. There you go. Done. So, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. And I think the first conversation I had with Otto was about the state of the music industry and how the musicians and bands routinely get fucked. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here and going off on a rant, but I mean, that's the whole thing. And that's what makes... I didn't spend 25 years of my life, or 26 years of my life in this scene to finally go and get my own music done that I've been spending decades working on. And to have people like Colonel Sanders say, hey, you know, I'm not going to support you because I don't know who the fuck you are. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I should have said that in 97 when I bought your CD at the show after meeting him. I was like, you know something, I'm going to support you because I want to see you guys become successful. Fuck that, I'm selling that thing. Anyway, Zach, that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, getting back to the band, let me ask you, how long have you guys been jamming, and how did you guys get started?
Well, I actually started working on these concepts and ideas going all the way back to 1994. Because I started listening to a lot of stuff. I mean, Nocturnus had a really big influence as far as incorporating other instrumentation. I think that was the first metal band I ever heard that used another instrument besides guitars and drums and bass. And if I was going to quote a biggest musical influence, it'd probably be Nocturnus. I still don't think that anybody can top what they did with their first 2 albums, but that's just my opinion. I mean, it was just so different. And it was coming right out of Florida, too. I mean, just completely different. So a lot of that stuff just gave me a lot of ideas. And I was also into this band for a while. I'm still into them, called Believer. And they used a full-string quartet in 1993. There was a band called Master's Hammer that used a full-time timpani player in black metal in a long operetta song concept. I mean, I just thought that was brilliant. They dedicated an entire album to one kind of ongoing story arc, and I thought that was brilliant. Total low-budget production. Sounded like they used some sort of drum programming, too, but the timpani were just thunderous. And also At the Gates and bands like Asphyx and Racer X and all this other stuff. So I was just really into a lot of that stuff. But up in New York, I couldn't find the right musicians, so it just kind of lingered for a while. And I was just working on lyrics and stuff. And then I came down here in 2008. In 2010, I started finally working on the actual music and putting it together and constructing it. And then I met Tim, the drummer, in 2011. And Jonathan and Tim are actually the 2 technically original members going back to 2011. So I spent my whole life looking for a good drummer in New York. I come down to Florida and I find 2 of them, which is great. I mean, Jonathan is an absolutely brilliant musician. And Tim and John have made me a much better guitar player working with them. But we started working on some stuff, and I was working with a brass and a fretless bass player at the time too, and just started coming up with a couple of demo songs. And then we just started filling up the lineup, and we're still not done, to be honest with you. And so we're going on about 3 years now, and we've had some setbacks with the album, mostly because my house nearly blew up. But that's a long story. And my next door neighbor got murdered, and then there was a suicide, and John's car spontaneously blew up in his car driveway. Just long story. Anyway, we've been really, like, this current iteration with this lineup, which is Tim on drums, John on timpani and percussion, Alan playing rhythm guitar, Dennis playing bass, didgeridoo, guitar, and hand percussion. Jesse's been doing vocals, and he was the vocalist for us live, so he's kind of being integrated more and more to be doing some vocals. Nick plays French horn, trumpet, and also bass. So Nick and Dennis switch off on bass with certain songs, and then Alan and Dennis switch off on guitar on certain songs now. We just have guys that play a lot of different instruments. I'm just trying to give them a chance to go and play whatever it is they play on various songs. Because what's the point of having musicians that play a bunch of different instruments if you don't use the instruments? So I'm just giving them an opportunity to play as much as they want. And then we had Leonard playing trumpet and trombone for us with the live show, and so we're really happy to have him on board. But right now we're, for all intents and purposes, a 7 or an 8 piece, and that's probably going to be extended to a 10 piece because I want the full brass section, at least a 4 piece. We're currently working on the album, and we're looking to start putting together some showcases again in the fall with the new lineup and with some new material.
Very cool. Well, you guys definitely have a very unique sound as far as the way that you mix all those different instruments in. As far as the lyrical content, what kind of themes would you say that you guys have?
Well, a lot of it is based on my personal experiences, and I guess there's a certain spiritual leaning to it in the sense that I guess a lot of people, they get their spirituality from a book or from a person that says this is the way things are. I tend to define my spirituality based on what I experience and how I express it. So a lot of the stuff on the first album, which didn't appear on the EP, really deals with more of the spiritual and the emotional aspect of some of the experiences I've had in reality and some experience I've had in my dreams, nightmares, that sort of thing. But on the EP, the last song really kind of deals a lot more with mental illness, I guess. And up in New York, we had some pretty brutal winters when I was a kid, and for whatever reason, I developed some sort of version of seasonal affective disorder. So Frenzied Winter Sorrow is really about seasonal depression in a way, but not just seasonal depression. It's like a winter that lasts forever that you can't escape from, and kind of like a blizzard in your mind that prevents you from seeing anything clearly. So that was really one of the first things I wrote, and we made it the kind of like the last song on the EP, or the second to last song on the EP. And Internal Hate Unbounded is really about, maybe you can relate to this. Have you ever known someone that you were just so sick and tired of dealing with their shit that you'd rather gut yourself with a spoon than have to deal with one more moment of their bullshit? Kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And Final Dying Breath is something that really kind of fits into the story arc of the ceremonial abnegation concept, which is the name of the concept that we're really working on with the band, that's spanning over multiple albums that are already written, actually. And Final Dying Breath is really, well, it's hard to explain, but it's probably the only lyrically gory song I've ever written, and probably the only one I ever will write, because it was really appropriate. And it kind of ties into the whole concept of the album. I'm not going to really talk about what it is because it's not going to make sense until you actually hear the album. But Frenzy, Winter Sorrow, and Internal Hate Unbounded are deeply, deeply personal in a sense where they're lyrical expressions of my own personal experiences, my own interactions with other people. Because let me tell you something. There are some situations where I just can't take it anymore. And it's not even so much about stupidity. You can deal with stupidity. You can even deal with ignorance. What I can't deal with are people that go out of their way to make your life miserable, as if they have nothing better to do. And if it wasn't for death metal, I probably would have gone to the electric chair already, or whatever they use now. Because, I mean, when you just get so frustrated and so incensed with the way that other people behave, and of course, like, there's always two sides to every story, and of course, because of my confrontational, argumentative attitude, I certainly don't do a lot to quell a lot of these confrontations. In fact, I said, well, if you're going to step to me, I'm going to step to you, and that's not very Bruce Lee, and that's not very martial arts, but sometimes you just can't walk away from a fight. So Internal Hate Unbounded was really about internalizing that animosity towards another person because of the pain that they've inflicted on you, and you're just powerless to do anything about it. So instead of outwardly expressing that aggression, you're inwardly expressing it, and you're almost inflicting it on yourself. And this is some of the mentality that I think goes through the head of somebody who is what might be considered suicidal. Is one of the first things that happens is self-harm and self-damage, whether it's emotional or whether it's something that's physical. And a lot of the first album deals with suicide, deals with the mentality behind that, and it almost takes a kind of an occult or sort of like ritualistic approach to suicide, almost like ritual suicide. That's the whole concept behind ceremonial abnegation. It's a ritual of this individual abnegating his life and his identity and everything that he is through suicide. So there is a very, very strong mental health leaning on this album, and I would be lying to you if I said that these weren't things that I didn't experience. So yeah, there's a very strong personal aspect to it, but at the same time, I've kind of put it together in sort of a story arc so that it kind of makes a little bit of cohesive sense instead of just random vomitation of emotional crap. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but you know where I'm going with it.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. That's cool that there's that much depth on the in the songs like that.
Yeah, I mean, in death metal, we have so many different concepts that we can work with, and there are so many different bands that express like a wide variety of things. But one of the things I don't see a lot of is suicide.
Yeah,
suicide is a problem. I mean, especially with metalheads. I mean, we have a community of people where like there are kids that will listen to like a Cannibal Corpse CD and say, you know something, man, if it wasn't for that CD, I wouldn't be alive today because I would have killed myself because I didn't think. And these are friends of mine, and I'm one of those people that especially death metal it allows us to enjoy life a little bit more because it gives us a place where we can go and channel some of this aggression. And the aggression is not because of some innate hatred for mankind. It's because of a lot of times being disappointed with society or family or women or friends or pop music or whatever. And if it wasn't for some of this extreme metal, God knows what would happen. And there's still people in the scene that kill themselves, and there's still good people that commit suicide. I mean, right before we started tracking the hand percussion for one of the songs on this album that deals with suicide, the night before that, one of our good friends committed suicide. So it's not like something that could be swept under the carpet. It's a really big problem. So what I'm trying to do is to take a more personal approach to this, but to try and put it together in a way where there is some good music attached to it. And hopefully people will like it. If they don't, I not really like to do about that.
That was one of the things that I liked a lot about Death growing up, the band Death, because I remember when I first listened to them, like I already liked death metal, but I noticed right away that they were talking about like real life type fucking problems and shit, but they were singing it in the same aggressive way as like the other death metal bands. But it was definitely cool to hear a band doing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you really think about it, Individual Thought Patterns was really something that was like one of those albums for me where it helped me kind of cope a little bit with my interpersonal relationships. Especially Mentally Blind. I mean, The Philosopher, Overactive Imagination, Jealousy. Oh, Jealousy. And a lot of that stuff on that album, if I understand correctly, is about Chuck's relationships with a lot of the people in the metal scene that, especially around here, that like to run their mouth. So I thought that was pretty interesting that he would basically go and instead of hacking people to pieces with a machete, he would go and write music about them. And let me tell you something. He hits the nail on the proverbial head.
Yeah, he did a good job.
So I got to give him some credit for that. And also stuff like what happened with Dead from Mayhem and Jan Nodvik from Dissection about how they committed suicide. That had a pretty big impact on me too, going into creating this whole concept. Is that I just don't see a lot of bands really addressing that. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed, especially if there are people that are close to you that have killed themselves, or people that you know that have experienced it or attempted it. So I think that that Death was really that band that sort of broke the mold lyrically, where it didn't have to be all about rip out the Virgin Mary's cunt and fuck it on the table. Like he really did break the mold with that. And I think also bands like Tiamat and Nocturnus and At the Gates and with their earlier material, they all kind of were breaking away from the gore for the sake of gore lyrical content and moving into some different, maybe more diverse and dynamic lyrical ideas. But I mean, gore is awesome. I am a big Dario Argento fan, so I love watching people getting hacked to pieces, as long as it's not like, Taliban cutting people's heads off. That's a little fucked up. But yeah, I mean, it's great to go and be involved in a style of music where, like, if you're looking for something, you're going to find it. Like, if you want to find a death metal band that uses fucking flute, you'll find it. If you want to find a death metal band that has great solos, you're going to find it. It's the most diverse musical genre on the planet. And it's pretty exciting to be involved and to see so many different bands do so many different things to the point where you hear the first 3 seconds of a song and you'll be able to identify who that band is. I just think that's amazing.
Fuck yeah, man. Now, the band name Markradonn, how did you guys come up with that? Is there a story behind that?
There is, and I'm not telling it.
Top secret.
It's top secret for now because you know something, before I start getting into a lot of this minutia and nostalgia, we need to put out some more material. And I think that when it's very easy to go and fall in love with yourself as a musician, and if you're in a band and you're doing a radio interview and you start talking about all this other stuff, and the bottom line is that in order for us to get to a point where we could start going and sharing a lot of these stories and backstories, we need to put some more fucking music out, and that's really what this is all about. You know, because the most important thing is the music, and nobody's going to understand what the hell the name means until they hear at least the first album with the additional songs on it. We have 2 songs on that album that between the 2 of them, it's about 26 minutes of music. So there's so much more that goes into this that fans and people need to hear before I can even start getting into this other crap, because it's meaningless. It doesn't mean a damn thing unless you have the music attached to it. So once we start going and getting more stuff out there and getting a live DVD too is one of our big priorities right now, because it's impossible for us to go and play gigs around here where we're getting the sort of resources we need. So I'm just going to go and dump a crap load of money into putting together a live produced DVD. So we need that in order to really get into a lot of this other stuff. So band name is definitely personal, but it's meaningless without the music that comes out.
Well, we definitely can't wait to hear more. I was just about to ask you what plans do you guys have for the future? You got the new CD coming out, and you just said a DVD. Do you have a tour or anything like that?
Well, that's something that we're working out. I don't know. Touring is extremely expensive, especially when you're dealing with double digits in band members. So
right.
I don't know about that. If we're gonna do anything, we would probably do like larger one-off type of festivals. Like I'd love to get down to Maryland. There's also some stuff going on in Oklahoma. One of my promo guys, Josh from the West Coast, from Oregon, he just sent me a text message right before we went on air to record this. He said that there's something he's working out for 2015. So if we do anything like that, it's going to be 2015. But nothing happens until this album is done, because this is the crux and the foundation of everything with this, and it's the beginning of a 4-album concept. We have 4 albums to address this whole thing about this guy who resents life and creation and everything so much to the point where he commits ritual suicide, and then the 3 albums after that is everything that happens to him after that. So the end of the guy's life and his life itself is such a minuscule, small part of the story, and everything else is about what happens after he dies. So there's a lot of work that goes into that that I have to put into to trying to really define that and to really make that musically significant, so that so they can express something and so that our fans will dig it. But that's really the plan right now, is just to continue to go and work with this and to be consistent and to put something out every year for the next couple of years, and to get the full ensemble on stage, which we did in May of this year, and it was successful for our first experiment with this. But we definitely need 2 or 3 more brass players live, and we have all this other stuff written for huge full ensemble. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out, and to see how the brass players intertwine with what I'm doing on guitar, and see how we can work that out, and make it interesting without losing the the core root of death metal, because it's essentially what we are. Is we're a death metal band that just uses other instruments too. So there's no pretense there. We're death metal, but we just happen to have other instruments in there that we use too. So we're really focusing a lot on content right now.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, Haniel, I guess I'm about out of questions for you, man. Is there anything that you want to tell the listeners and your fans out there that are tuned into this?
Yeah, buy music. Buy it. Purchase it. If you're going to download it, go to the band's website and buy a T-shirt. That's what I really need to say here, because if it wasn't for the fans and the supporters making donations on our GoFundMe site, and if you want to go and check it out and get some cool stuff, go to GoFundMe.com/Markradonn, and what I'll do is I'll send you the link right over here, so that you can use it. But look, when you go and you support a band that doesn't have the backing of label money, you are supporting the band directly. You have a direct relationship with the people in that band. It's like when I was a kid and I used to write letters back and forth to Ross from Immolation, and when I used to go and write to Alf from Oxyplugats and Grotesque and At the Gates. You have a direct relationship with them. You're actually involved in the creative process because you're inspiring the musicians to continue to put out new stuff. You're inspiring them and motivating them and giving them your support. That's what support means. So when you go and you buy a $5 CD or a $15 or a $20 T-shirt, or you buy a poster or stickers, you are having a direct involvement in that particular musical project. It's a relationship that you can't have with somebody who doesn't know who the hell you are. Somebody who says, I'm not going to support you because I don't know you. It's a totally different thing. So when you go and you support a band, especially a band that doesn't have label money backing or big financial backing, you are making it possible for them to make the music that you just downloaded. And if you download it, like let's say you get like 20,000 people download a particular band and 40 people buy their CD, guess what? They're not going to come out with another CD. And I've seen that happen. So buy music. And don't think, oh, well, bands make most of their money from tours and shows. No, I don't know anyone that makes money from shows. They make their money from selling merchandise, and they make their money from selling their CDs. And that's the most important thing for any fan of any genre of music, especially metal, because we're a totally different animal than anybody else out there. You have to buy the music. And I don't take any excuses. What, you don't have $5 to go and buy a CD? But, hey, you got plenty of money to go and buy a dime bag. You got plenty of money to go and get fucked up on alcohol. You got plenty of money to go over there and spend it on freaking $40 to go and see Behemoth. But you can't go and buy a $5 fucking CD from a band that had to make a decision between going and paying their rent and going and putting out music that you're listening to. Fuck that. Buy it. Every time I go to a show, and this is the rule of thumb, and I think every fan should do this. Every show that I go to, I make sure I have a $20 bill. I make sure I have a $20 bill put aside, and I use that to spend it on merch, whether I buy a T-shirt or I buy CDs or I buy stickers. And even the show that, I'm not joking about this, even the show on May 29th. Now I'm a 25-year veteran of this scene. I'm in my late 30s. People that we played shows with, these people that we played with on the 29th, I bought their CDs and I asked them to autograph it. Because you know something? I don't care if I put out a CD or if I'm on stage in front of 10,000 people or 20 people or whatever. I'm still a fan, and that's not going to change. And I think that a lot of people lose sight of that, Zach. They lose sight of the fact that without the support of the fans, we don't exist. And we raised about, I figure about $1,000 between PayPal donations and the GoFundMe page. I wouldn't be able to do this without those donations, especially with the crap that happened last year where my entire house was basically about to blow up, and then my entire city. So without that type of support, without people buying our stuff and making donations, supporting us, we don't exist. This does not happen without that GoFundMe page. This does not happen without fans saying, here's $5, here's $20. I mean, some people donated $100. We don't do this without that. I'm not able to do it because that $1,000 allowed me to go and get the timpani and maybe to go and pay for some of the miscellaneous expenses with the drums. Buying the timpani. Now there's something I got to say here, guys. Timpani is typically a $12,000 investment for a set of 4. I was able to go and get a set of 3 that we're using now for indefinitely for about $1,000 between the 3 of them, which is a great price. But I'm not able to do that without the fans supporting us. So if you think about that, think about how there are bands out there that have a normal 5-piece that even $5 can make a huge difference to that particular band and to whether or not they can go and put out music and to whether or not they can go and continue to do this. It really pisses me off when there are people out there that say, oh, well, when you download music, it's free advertising and it doesn't cost a band to put it up there. You mean to tell me the $17,000 production expense doesn't count? So you see what I mean? It really gets to a point where the fan base needs to go and discipline themselves, just like I do, just like all my friends do, and buy the music. And if you can't buy the music, buy a T-shirt. And if you can't buy the T-shirt, then at that point, send them money. I don't know. But the more you support a band with your dollar, the more you make it capable for them to go and make music that you like.
Absolutely, dude. Well, you heard it here, folks. Fucking, if you like the shit, buy the shit.
Yep.
All right, man.
See it, man.
Well, Haniel, before I let you go, let me make us a station tag real quick. Cool?
Sure. Just tell me what to say.
All right. Just say, this is Haniel from Markradonn, and you are listening to Metal Devastation Radio.